Hey guys, Cal here, and today I'm standing here with the 2024 GMC Canyon AT4X, and I truly do believe if you can't afford a Ford Raptor, this truly is the next best option that you can buy. Now, if you guys haven't seen a full review of the GMC Canyon yet, I did do a full review on the Canyon Elevation just last week. I'll have that video linked up here, but today we're gonna look at the differences that make the AT4X the AT4X. So the first difference on the AT4X here compared to a standard Canyon is the track width of the wheels here is about 66.3 inches, whereas on a standard Canyon like the Elevation, it's about 66.1, so it's a small difference of width there. And then also, just as a reference for the off-roaders, the Wrangler Rubicon's track width is about 64.4 inches wide, so this is a little bit wider on the track width than the Wrangler Rubicon. Next up is that the front wheels on the AT4X here have been pulled further forward than, say, something like a standard Canyon, which allows the AT4X here to have a 36.9-degree approach angle and a 25-degree departure angle in the rear. Now, it is to note that the Colorado ZR2 does have slightly better approach and departure angles, but it's probably such a small difference that really you just kind of end up going with whatever truck you like the look of best. And as for ground clearance on the AT4X here, we're going to be looking at about 10.7 inches, whereas on a standard GMC Canyon AT4, that ground clearance is going to be about 9.6 inches. So with the AT4X here, you're picking up about an inch more of ground clearance. And of course, because the AT4X here is an off-road minded vehicle, you get some really gnarly looking skid plates up in the front for your approach angle here. And then there's also another skid plate in the center of the underside of the truck as well. And then I was looking under the truck and I had to double check my eyes for a second because there are cameras under the underside of the AT4X here that allow you to look at what the ground looks like between your front wheels and what the ground looks like between your rear wheels. And I was absolutely mind blown. Now, I hope that holds up well in the northeastern states here where we have our road salt and everything. I really hope too much corrosion doesn't happen with those cameras down there. But my God, that was one of the coolest features I've seen on a truck in a very, very long time. And of course, because you are buying the Canyon of Canyons, you are also going to get some really cool looking wheels on this truck. These are the 17-inch high gloss black painted aluminum wheels, and they do come with a machined finish as well. And I think these are some of the most angular, tough looking wheels that are offered on the Canyon right now. And as for the tires you're going to get on the AT4X here, on the Canyon Elevation that I test drove last week, that truck had the Goodyear Wrangler Territory all-terrains. This one has the Goodyear Wrangler Territory mud terrain. So these are pretty good looking tires. I like the look of them. And the tire size on these is a 285/70/17. And the Canyon I reviewed last week was sort of the opposite side of the spectrum of the AT4X here. That one was a two-wheel drive Elevation, and that one was getting 19 miles to the gallon in the city and 23 miles to the gallon on the highway. Now, I don't know why if you're buying a $58,000 AT4X that you're worrying about fuel economy. You're probably not, but it is to note that the fuel economy on this one is 17 miles to the gallon in the city and 17 miles to the gallon on the highway as well. So it is just a little bit lower than the Elevation's MPG. And in the AT4X here, you're probably going to be going around some pretty tight corners off-road, so you're probably going to want some rock sliders on the side to protect your cab, and that is exactly what this truck has. And I do believe that these come standard on the AT4X because I did not see it in the options list on the window sticker. So I do believe for the AT4X that these rock sliders are going to come standard for you. Now let's talk about these really neat looking gold Multimatic spool valve shocks. Now they have about 11.6 inches of suspension travel in the rear here and about 10.3 inches of travel up in the front. And these shocks are mounted on the outside of the leaf springs for some increased stability out on the trail. Now the Raptor, those bigger trucks, this is where they really start to win out. The Raptor has about 15 inches of suspension travel in the rear and 14 inches of suspension travel in the front on the 35-inch tire model. That is kind of a big difference between the Raptor and the AT4X here, but I guess it's not so bad of a difference, especially considering the price difference between the two. Another really cool part about stepping up to the AT4X here is that you get this really high quality factory spray and bed liner, and you also get the 120 volt power outlet in the bed, all as standard equipment. And then you also, just like on the GMC Canyon Elevation that I reviewed the other day, you get this in tailgate storage, which is really nice to have if you want to toss some tie downs or some ratchet straps in there. And the next thing is I also really want to commend GM for doing such an incredible job on the AT4X's interior. I never usually expect impressive interiors from GM, but I guess I should because a lot of their cars in the recent years have been coming with incredible interiors. I mean, even just on this door panel, we have this white leather here, that accent with the red stitching running across it, the black leather right here with that red stitching also running across it, and the black leather in this pocket of the door with that black stitching running in a different direction. And then on the seating itself, you get this red stitching running through it. And then also you get these colored seat belts, these red seat belts, which are only a $50 option. If you are ordering your own AT4X and you do not order these colored seat belts, you are absolutely crazy. This is the best $50 you could ever spend. Like, it just makes it feel like the interior of like a Porsche in here. It is so, so cool that GM is doing this. And then on the rest of the seat, they also have a pattern running across the inlays of the leather that sort of looks like little tire tracks. And then on the rest of the leather seating, they have the red leather kind of coming in for a touch of color again, just like we did on the door. And then also that white leather coming across the back seats here with those touches of the red stitching. This whole back seat, this whole interior is done so well that when I get in, I feel like I'm getting into a sports car. It's a special experience when you get into the AT4X here. Another thing I like, it's one of the few trucks on the market that still has an electronically locking front and rear diff. And what's really cool about that is when you lock the rear diff on this truck in two-wheel drive, the traction control will not interfere. So that means you can do really, really cool drifts off-road or in the snow in this thing, and that traction control is not going to stop any of it. It's just going to let you have your fun. As for your drive modes here in the AT4X, on your four-wheel drive selector is where you're going to find where you can also select the drive modes that you want to put the truck into. Now, as for Baja mode, you can select that in two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, and essentially what that mode is going to do is the transmission is going to hold your shifts a little bit longer, and it's also going to prioritize downshifting when you are braking to kind of bring the truck to a quicker halt. And then as for terrain mode, what that is going to do is essentially desensitize the gas pedal so that when you're out on the trail and you're rock crawling, you're not spinning your tires due to too much throttle input. And I also wanted to note how cool these backgrounds look that GMC has put in here when you're switching between all these modes. On the normal mode, of course, we're just on a standard tarmac highway. Off-road, it shows you out in the mud there. On tow haul, of course, you got a trailer behind you. On terrain, you are really out in the mud. And then with Baja, of course, you are out in the desert. And then it also says reducing electronic stability. And it asks you, do you want to reduce the electronic stability or do you want to keep it where it's at? All right, guys, here we are going to take a little ride in the Canyon here. Now, taking a look around the interior, it is pretty good space. Me being 6'2", I do actually have a good amount of leg space there. You can see how straight my legs can get. So it's actually pretty comfortable seating position in here. And yeah, we're gonna go ahead and take this thing out on the road. All right, guys, time for a little acceleration run here in the Canyon. We're gonna go ahead and, oh, wow. Oh, wow, she goes out of nowhere. Wow, those revs came up quick, man. This thing does not screw around. That was pretty sweet, actually. Wow. All right, so the Canyon does have a little bit of pick up and go here in the AT4X. And what I really like about it too is that this feels, not only do I have a little bit more meat in the steering wheel here than I do in the standard Canyon, this definitely is a thicker steering wheel. I don't think the other Canyon steering wheel was this thick, but it's just so impressive how much beefier this truck feels compared to a standard Canyon. This one just, not only, I think because of those tires, this suspension that's on this truck, this whole different setup, this thicker steering wheel, it just feels like a way, way beefier, way more fun truck than the standard Canyon. And I felt the same way about the Colorado ZR2 when I drove that a few years back. It also feels way cooler to be behind the wheel of than a standard Colorado. It just feels so much wider, so much cooler, even though it's really not significantly wider than the standard Canyon. All right, guys, that wraps it up for my review of the 2024 GMC Canyon AT4X. I wanted to give a quick shout out to my friends over at Johnson GMC for giving me access to this truck. They do have this truck in stock right now. I will link their contact info in the description down below. And I truly do believe that if you do not have Ford Raptor money, that this is the next best thing that you can buy, because this also has that intimidating, wide, just menacing feeling when you're behind the wheel out on the road. It just is such a cool feeling behind the wheel. It has a pretty great powertrain as well. The interior is absolutely just knock it out of the park. I mean, depending who you are, I would actually almost say this interior is a little bit better, a little bit higher quality than the interior that's in the Raptor. So I just wanted to say that this truck is going to be a great investment for you if you decide to pick this up.